Good evening, sir.
Good evening. You see the document that I sent, right?
Which document, sir?
So I posted it in the WhatsApp group and I sent it via email. So you're going to work on it from 7 to 8.
Let
It's
me see,
graded.
sir.
It's good. What the-
Okay. And when we must submit this, sir?
At 8 o'clock.
Okay. So you said we must do 2 tasks, but task C is compulsory, right?
Right. So task C is compulsory, and then you can choose task A or B. So you're doing 2 of them, but C is compulsory. So you do C and you can choose either task A or task B.
Okay, no problem, sir. When you said we can work in groups?
No, you work pair. So you can work by yourself or work in a pair. So nobody's here yet. So you just have to start it on your own, okay?
All right, sure.
Okay.
And where we must upload this when we're finished, sir?
I'm going to show you how to upload it to turn it in.
Okay. I remember I was telling you that I didn't get the access as it.
Yeah, I'll show you how to do it.
No problem.
Okay. This is hi Gabrielle.
Good night, sir.
Hi, I'm seeing Rashid Toko. So we're going to use the first hour of the class to do the class activity. Well, the first in-class graded assignment. I've sent it via email and I've also posted it in the WhatsApp group. You will have exactly 1 hour, so I'm going to start teaching at 8 o'clock.
Sir, but we joined 8:05, so
yes, sir.
8:05, so you would start teaching at 8:05. That would be an hour.
I'm not the reason why you're late. All right, so let's go with 8:05 then. All right, so he's saying 8:05. All right, let's work with 8:05. Rashid, no, sorry, Matthew. I haven't heard you said anything. Are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm just joined.
Okay, and you are seeing, you saw the email I sent, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, cool. What I could do is to put you in a breakout room. No, but how many persons are in the class? I think it's about right. So let's say 10. So let's create, because I don't want to. I think who just joined? Jerome Parnell.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm sure you saw my email. I'm going to create. I wanted to create more than one breakout room because I think it's about. So let's create. All right, so I'm going to put you guys in a breakout room so that you can work out. So you can. So this is random. So the breakout room has paired only in room 1 and then the other rooms. All right. So you can do it in the room outside of the noise of the class. And let me just make sure that you're able to share. Did I activate that? Yes, it has been activated. So that you can, and I'm beginning exactly to teach at 8:05, exactly 8:05. All right, so please go into the breakout rooms. Some of you are going to work by yourself. Unless other persons join, then I'll add them to the breakout room. Valerie? I'm not seeing your, I don't think you're able to speak. What's wrong with your microphone? Oh yes, I see that your microphone is, could you just say something, Valerie?
Good evening, sir.
Right, so you saw that I gave them some activity to do, right? For the in-class first graded piece of assignment.
Yes, sir.
All
So
right.
should the student not log in then?
Yes, I'm going to put in one of the breakout rooms. They would have started and they have exactly an hour. So all you're going to do is just to follow, work with the person and create one assignment and put both your names and ID numbers on it, okay?
Sir, are you gonna put us in a group or?
No, they're already in the breakout room. So I'm going to put you in one of the breakout rooms.
I was working with them already, sir, so I don't know. He's
Oh,
there?
for this, for the in-class first assignment,
Yes, sir.
but he's not here now. So
I'm gonna call him, but you can put me in a breakout room. I'm gonna call him now. I already communicate as it relates to this.
oh, you guys were going to work together for this one.
Yes, sir.
Oh,
So I'm gonna call him now and I'm gonna start now.
yes, because probably it could mean that he's just not here yet. But if it is that you guys are working together, I have no issues with that.
Okay, sir. All right, cool.
Yeah, but yes, I'm stopping it exactly at 5 minutes after 8 though.
5 minutes after 8?
Yep.
Okay. All right, sir.
I'm seeing Javar. Good evening, Javar.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, I'm going to add you to the breakout room so you can continue, so you can work with at least one person who has already started the in-class assignment.
Okay, sir. Thanks.
Yes. Already, do you want me to put you in the other breakout room, or you want to continue working with the person who is not here yet? Valerie, are you there? All right, let me join and see what's happening. Is this Kemar Murphy?
Yes, sir.
You are late, sir.
Yeah, boy, sir. Remember the call up, Run
Oh,
to get
okay.
gas station before they unlock.
Oh, okay. Is it you who was supposed to be working with Al Ray?
No, no, I don't know about that, sir. Because I never, anytime say I give me a question.
Okay, no man, we soon get to the question. The question is different from the in-class first graded up piece. So I'm going to put you in room 2 so you can work with Jerome.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sir.
Yeah. So let me remove. Please go in room 2 for me, Kemar. Are you hearing me, Kemar? I'm still not seeing you in room 2. Hi, Kenya. Are you hearing me, Kenya?
Night, sir.
Night. Have you started the, I hope you have started the in-class activity, in-class first graded piece.
So the group project or the singular word?
The one that I sent an email. I posted it in the WhatsApp group today, and I sent an email today as well. Persons are actually in the respective breakout rooms completing it. So I'm going to put you in one of the breakout rooms and you can work with them, okay?
Okay, sir, no problem. Thank you.
Okay. Demari, you're just joining us? Demari, are you hearing me?
Sir?
Yes, you're just hearing me.
Yeah, I'm hearing you now.
Are you just joining the class?
Well, yeah, I'm pairing with Ari. I'm almost finished with the work.
Okay, so which one? So you know task C is compulsory. Have you finished C already?
Sir?
So you said that you're almost finished. Which ones are you doing? Because you are only supposed to do 2 questions and task C is compulsory.
Sir, bro.
You're not hearing me or you're not understanding me? Damari, are you still there? Not sure why he's not hearing me. Let me go in. I think I was in room 2. Let me just go in room 3. All right, so I'm just waiting for persons to be out of the breakout, for all persons to be out of the breakout room. We have a few more seconds remaining. All right, good. So how was the exercise? Let me hear first your feedback. How was the exercise?
So the video them way attached to the work, boy, never so helpful at all.
So in detail, sir.
Yeah, it never give
It's
us.
not supposed to be. It's not supposed to be.
Not
in
yeah,
detail.
not supposed to be in detail, sir.
It was
But
deliberate. I did deliberately put it in detail because you had to go. Remember, you were supposed to be reading and preparing for the class and all of that. So I deliberately didn't give you everything. It was very deliberate. Some of it you had to go and kind of do your own digging. I'm sure it was manageable. Am I correct in my assumption?
Yeah, look, sir.
What would you say was which task would you consider to be more difficult or most difficult?
I just say number 11 because I never answered that.
Number 11. Anybody answered number 11? Let me just see if I can bring it up. I don't know that number 11 was difficult, but let's look at it. Let me close this because I have too many things open. Open recent in class. So let's share screen. Are you seeing, so you're seeing number 11 here. Use a point of, was former President Trump right about NAFTA? Explain your answer with pros and cons of said aid. Anybody answered that one? Was it difficult for you? Everybody's silent, I don't know why.
Sir, the assignment kind of very interesting, but the time just too short. Although I'm not gonna blame the time, sir, because circumstances have reached late still.
Yeah, and I'm going to give you until Friday to bring it in. So you guys can kind of fine tune, go back through, and if you want to read some of the information, all right?
So when you submit the assignment, sir?
I'm going to show you how to submit it on Friday. In Friday's class, I'll show you how to upload it to Turnitin.
Okay.
Anybody who doesn't upload it by Friday will get a 0. Yes. I'm listening. Go ahead.
Basically, is a what the format for this assignment?
What do you mean by the format? I don't understand.
So I can present in a class or for just
No,
do a
no, no, no.
document?
No, man.
Do a
It's
document.
you just do a document. Put your ID numbers and your names. So if you work with 2 persons or
So
3, you
what
work
type of a
together.
document? A
Yes,
specific
you have
way
to.
and all them thing there.
You have to. All assignments must be typed. All assignments are typed at this level, unless it's a written exam. You
No,
have
man,
to
I say
type it.
like all for the question answer them. They have to be like what? How long, much words?
You determine that.
All right. So okay, so we can answer a question them simple as long as you understand it.
And if you answer them too simple, I'll give you 0.
They may ask you, sir,
Because when, for example, they ask you to explain something, when you're explaining something, you have to ensure that at the end of the day, the person understands what you're saying. So if I say, which is different from when I say, what is Jamaica good at exporting? You might just say Jamaica is good at exporting. And your answer about what Jamaica is good at exporting must be informed by data. It can't be that you just say, oh, we're good at exporting music, because I'm going to then ask, where is the evidence to say that Jamaica is, because it's coming from the notion of comparative advantage, which is really about exporting, producing and exporting that which you're best at producing and exporting. So if you say, let us say you say coffee, I'm going to say, okay, when you look at the international data or data from the international markets, in terms of the biggest export from Jamaica, ensure if you put coffee, that coffee is actually what the data is showing. Understand? So it can't be something that you are talking about in a very willy-nilly way. It has to be informed by data. All right, this is a course driven by data and driven by literature. The information is out there in the public domain. So you have to ensure that you inform yourself properly about these particular things. All right. Yeah, I think it was actually a very good exercise, and we'll be doing probably about 2 or 3 more of these, because you have to be also reading the information. I won't come and teach you every single thing. All right, so you have to kind of be investing as well. For today, let me just close this. For today, in terms of our learning objectives, again, we are looking, kind of digging a little bit deeper now, looking at globalization. And we're going to talk a little bit about the different types of globalization in terms of whether it be economic, political, cultural, and then also look at exploring all of those things, the different types of globalization, and looking at the pros and cons of globalization. But before I do that, let me just, to some extent, give you some insights in terms of the activity that you just did. Where am I? No. So part of what you were looking at, I'm sure you came across the term mercantilism, and I think you came across the term comparative advantage, right? Am I correct?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. So these are things that I'm going to teach you along the way. So one of the first things you want to make notion or make note of is the fact that mercantilism is a theory. It's a theory that helps us to understand the international trade, or the lack thereof. All right. And comparative advantage is also another theory that helps us to understand international trade. So mercantilism, comparative advantage are international theories that help us to understand trade. And when you're talking about theories, and I'm not going to teach you about theories, I'm just kind of speaking about it generally, because there's an entire unit that is on international trade theories. Theories are really notions or, well, really notions or principles or research that inform or suggest how the world works or how the world should work. In this case, it's speaking about how international trade is done or was done. So in the case of mercantilism, it says that mercantilism was really a country's wealth was measured by its holdings of gold and silver. In other words, mercantilism was more where a country or a state felt the need to kind of hoard gold and silver, and that in and of itself constituted wealth. So a country's goal should be to enlarge holdings of gold and silver by promoting export and discouraging imports. So you export your gold and silver and you discourage other countries from exporting to your country. So you want to export to others, but you don't want them to export to yours. In other words, let's just say this is Jamaica. Jamaica wants to export, but Jamaica is discouraging import. All right, and this is kind of the first, let's just say, the historical theory, the founding theory that helps us to understand international trade. There are disadvantages, and I'm not going to get into all the disadvantages in terms of mercantilism, but you were introduced to it, so I wanted to just make mention of that. I'm seeing something in the chat. Jerome, you want my email address? May I ask why?
No. Here, God, I'm a group mate. Me not text one.
Okay.
Go to everybody.
Okay, all right. The other theory I think you came across was comparative advantage, right? I think you came across comparative advantage in terms of the class assignment. Am I correct?
As in what we got, sir?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Right. So comparative advantage, no, it says produce and export those goods and services for which it is relatively more productive than other countries. So if Jamaica is better at producing coffee let's just say Jamaica produces coffee and tomato, but Jamaica is better able to produce coffee than Barbados, and Barbados is better at producing. So let me do it this way. So let us say, let me put it this way. Let's put the, so we have coffee. So we have Jamaica, well, let's say Jamaica, Jamaica. Jamaica produces, let's say, coffee and banana, and Trinidad and Tobago also produces coffee. That's not coffee. And banana. But, so even though both countries produce it, let's just say Jamaica is better able or is better able to produce and export coffee than its own bananas. What Comparative Advantage is saying is that Jamaica should focus on coffee and don't focus on banana. And if Trinidad is better able to produce and export banana versus coffee, then Trinidad should focus on bananas and less on coffee. And that is what helps facilitates international trade between countries, because one country has a comparative advantage. So comparative means that you're what? Showing difference, or you're showing similarities, right? So Jamaica is better able to produce coffee than Trinidad, and Trinidad is better able to produce banana than coffee. So it makes sense for them to what? Trade. Understand?
Yes, sir.
So that's why this point says import those goods and services for which other countries are relatively more productive than it is. In other words, in this case, Trinidad will be more productive producing and exporting banana than coffee. Well, I haven't taught you about absolute advantage yet, so we're not there yet. So comparative advantage incorporates the concept of opportunity cost. But there's another thing that comparative advantage mentions, and it's the notion of specialization. And I'm sure anybody has ever come across that. You should come across that term in terms of logistics. Specialization. Have we ever come across that term, specialization?
Yeah, it's all familiar, sir.
Right. In other words, specialization is really about there are some countries. All right, let me ask you this way. You can answer me this way. Which country do you think produces the best cars? Which countries you think produces the best cars? Japan?
Germany.
Germany.
It's Germany, yes, sir.
Why Germany and not Japan, or why Japan and not Germany?
I would say the rationale I would use is that Japan export in quantity a large and more wider range of cars versus Germany. The cars that Germany actually produces are some more of high-end vehicles in terms of price. I think Germany right now is moving towards by 2030. All of their cars should be electrical. None of them not gonna use gasoline. Versus Japan, we should have produced a large amount of cars where them export around the world are gonna be gasoline. So those cars are gonna become obsolete, where they have to compete against Germany now.
Well, I would say that both countries are actually correct. It's just that Germany specializes in high-end cars, and Japan specializes in more affordable cars. So it could be that, for example, Japan exports to all countries around the world, but primarily to and target people who are not in a part of the 1% of the world. But they're able to produce cars so the taximan, so they can supply the taxi, the transport industry in terms of taxi service. And I'm just speaking in terms of generally, versus Germany now that produces high-end cars. And therefore, it means that Germany would actually be exporting those kinds of cars to more developed countries. Make sense?
Yes,
So,
sir.
so
Yes,
both
sir.
of them
Only
actually have,
percent.
right. So both of them actually have comparative advantages in terms of the type of cars that they produce. One is high-end, and Japan probably is. I don't think Japan produces high-end cars because most of those cars, we have them in Jamaica, right? The Japan car, the cars from Japan.
Not all of them.
No, I'm not saying all, but don't you have a lot of the cars that come to Jamaica?
Only for Japanese car, they are Jamaica. Only for them.
Right. So it could be that, for example, Japan has a comparative advantage in exporting cars in developing countries and not Germany, and Germany has a comparative advantage exporting cars to developed countries, and Japan does not have that advantage. You see what I mean? Because in countries like Canada, for example, the cars that are in Jamaica are not driven in Canada because Canada is a developed country, and the way the economy is structured, just about anybody can drive any car, no matter how high it is, because you might be paying $200 per month for the car fee versus Jamaica, where in Jamaica you have to go to arms and length to get some basic stuff. So I would say that both of them have comparative advantage depend in relation to the type or the brand or the nature or the sophistication of the car that they produce. All right, so just think about comparative advantage in that way and how it helps us know to understand international trade in the context of specialization. In other words, some countries specialize in terms of producing a specific thing or a group of products or offer certain services versus other countries. All right. So again, now as a theory, comparative advantage helps us to understand international trade. I think there was another question about international organizations. I think there was a question about it, and I think primarily after World War II. Was there a question about that?
Not about.
Look carefully. I wrote the questions.
Yes,
Yeah, there was a question about international bodies or body that was formed after World War II. And what this is showing you is just an evolution or etymology of international organizations over time. All right, and why they were formed and how they sometimes, not necessarily always participating in international trade as we're seeing here, but how when they maintain global stability, stability facilitates international trade. And I'm sure at one point in one of the recordings that you watch, you will see that international trade was literally paused during World War I and World War II. It was impossible for there to be international trade because countries were busy fighting wars. And after World War II, they said, here what, we need to do away with this. The United Nations was formed, but there are other international bodies that were formed, including the General Agreements on Tariffs on Trade, which it was the first one, and that evolved into the World Trade Organization. And the World Trade Organization now really regulates, it originally started regulating trade between countries in relation to goods. And then after that, now it added services in terms of telecommunications and all of that, right? And how, for example, now the World Trade Organization now operates as a kind of police of the world in terms of international trade, even though it has its own weaknesses in terms of of enforcing its rules, and how developed countries such as the United States and even China, although there's a debate whether or not China is developed or developing, and how they're able to circumvent or skirt the rules of the World Trade Organization. I think there's also a question about, and this is a question I think persons were saying, I think one person was saying that he was having a challenge in terms of understanding or responding to the note about NAFTA. And what you see here is an image of the different kinds of what I call regional blocks or economic blocks around the world. So we have, for example, we know CARICOM, which is Caribbean Community and Common Market, and you barely can see it. And you have the North American Free Trade Agreement, which is Canada, the USA, and Mexico. And even at the university where I work, I work in admissions. I remember when we interviewed one student, and my supervisor, one of my supervisors, said that she would be paying domestic rate, and I was like, but she's from Mexico, and they said it's a part of the North American Free Trade Agreement, so she pays domestic rates. And now I understand why so many Americans actually come to Canada to get their education and then go back, because American education is ridiculously expensive in some of the states. And because of NAFTA, they're able to come to Canada, pay domestic fees, and go back to their home countries. So it makes a lot of sense. So you have these economic blocks or regional blocks, and it's not only in terms of it's not only in terms of economic benefits, but as we are going to discuss, when you look at the different permutations of globalization, you're going to see globalization in terms of culture, globalization outside of in terms of political globalization. And when we say political globalization, we're not talking necessarily about JLP, PNP, but even the kinds of political governments and systems that are around the world, and the kinds of legislations that affect people's lives and all of that. All right, even in terms of what is happening in the Ukraine, the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. So you see the North American Free Trade Agreement, which is just one of them that I've introduced you to. You see the African Union and you see the Arab League. So all these different countries, based on proximity and based sometimes on their own experiences, I'm coming, Kamar, they have formed economic blocks. Go ahead, Kamar.
Oh, sir, question.
Mm-hmm.
We have the WTO, right? And the WHO.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right? Those govern the entire world, right?
They don't govern
As
the world. They can't. So the WHO it doesn't govern the world. It functions as an international body that coordinates, that really functions as a kind of, that coordinates matters relating to public health and public safety, but it doesn't govern. So if the World Health Organization says to Canada, you must do this, Canada can say, fuck you. Canada can say that. They don't have to comply. Most countries try to comply, but they don't have to. All right, but continue. Go ahead. I don't know if that was the only question you wanted to ask. Kamar? So I'm sure he'll come back. In terms of the World Trade Organization, it is supposed to be enforceable in terms of if any country takes matters to them, it is supposed to be enforceable. I think, if I remember correctly, in my years of doing doing international relations, I think the US actually took a country took the US to took a matter to the World Trade Organization, and they actually won, because the United States was relating to banana, to the international trade of banana. I need to look up the case. I don't remember remember all of the details. All right, so you see that there are different, as I said before, regional blocks, and many times it is based on proximity. Sometimes it's really just to counter developed countries and their unethical practices in terms of international trade. So you find, for example, that the United States might be,
lose the internet a while ago, sir.
Yes, I realized that something was wrong with the internet, but I will continue to make the point. I'm not sure that you were finished making the point.
So I was just kind of wondering, because when I look at this the map right here, so it has a different different thing I call, community, like our Caribbean community.
Regional, you call them regional blocks.
Regional blocks, all right. So I was just thinking, on the other hand, like we have the WTO and WHO, if that would have supersedes everything else, or everybody have to abide by that. But no, you're explaining that is just,
so there's a difference between so the World Health Organization does not deal with international trade. They deal with matters relating to public health, like pandemics, right? And they also function in terms of going into respective countries for solving endemics and training staff. For example, when Ebola was happening in parts of Africa, they worked with the United States to go in and just to ensure that they eradicate it, because the moment you don't want something like that spreading across the world. So they really help to coordinate. But what they say is not necessarily enforceable in the countries. On the other hand, the World Trade Organization, their rules and regulations are supposed to be enforceable. And there have been cases where countries have actually have won cases against other countries by taking them to the World Trade Organization. I can't remember all of the cases right now. So I'm going to actually teach you about international bodies and or teach you about international organizations or multinational organizations. So, and there's a difference. So multinational corporations is different from multinational organizations that help to regulate international trade. So there's a lecture on that. All right. So you will find too that even when you have these particular regional blocks, like CARICOM, for example, you'll find that individual states will form what are called bilateral agreements. These are agreements between one country and another country, or multilateral agreements, agreements between 3 or more countries. And this again, now, sometimes you hear the fight in CARICOM about unity. And former Prime Minister of Jamaica, Mr. Edward Seaga, has always been against CARICOM because he said that CARICOM has never really lived up to its true mandate of unity and of economic functioning as a single economy. That has never ever happened. He has always criticized it, and to some extent, it's actually a warranted criticism. People have people have criticized Mr. Seaga, but partly because he's a laborite and all of that. But there's some merit in terms of his argument. And all of us in this class will remember many instances where Jamaicans are actually treated less than when they visit other Caribbean countries. So there's some merit to what Mr. Seaga had alleged. And some of these, as I said before, some of this we're going to look at. In terms of NAFTA, and I want to, let us see if we can just look at the clip or play the clip of what Donald Trump says, former President Donald Trump, and see if there's some amount of merit, because I think that's the question. Are you hearing the ad?
No, sir.
No, sir. You have to stop share and then share audio.
Yeah, I didn't turn on my sound. So sound is on. Let me just make sure. Yeah. So let's listen to former President Donald Trump.
Trans-Pacific Partnership. This will be, she called it the gold standard. This will be a disaster. We're going to renegotiate NAFTA. Probably the worst trade deal ever agreed to, signed in the history of the world. We're also going to lower taxes on American business from 35% to 15%, and we will have the largest regulatory reform in American history. We're going to stand up to China. If we don't get the deal we want, we will withdraw from NAFTA and start all over and get a much, much better deal than we ever had before. And then they say I'm against trade. Well, I'm against deals like that, I can tell you.
All right, what are your thoughts? What were you thinking when you listened to what former President Donald Trump said about NAFTA in the context of international trade?
And
Sir, the man said NAFTA foolishness are the worst agreement never come about with the history. In the history of times. So it might go dash for that and build back something new if China does not listen to what they're actually saying.
But China is not a part of NAFTA though. Because remember, NAFTA is Canada, the USA, and Mexico.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was somebody else who was going to make a point?
Yes, sir. Based on the research, I think maybe NAFTA might have succeeded in what it was designed to do, sir. My opinion.
Say more. Say more. Why do you think that?
Because they were designed to like, they were designed to like increase trade between the United States, Canada, and Mexico. So yeah, yes, sir. I feel like I have
But
to
what
say.
happened? But what happened then? What happened then? Or speculate, hazard a guess what you think happened. Why President Trump was so against NAFTA?
Well, well, I think he was against NAFTA because probably, I don't know, maybe like it kind of affected like in his era, like the United States. I'm not sure, maybe. Probably something went bad within the era of United States.
A lot of things went wrong. A lot of Americans lost their jobs.
Right. Yes, sir.
Because because of NAFTA, many of the American companies went to Mexico because they could get cheaper labor in Mexico.
Right.
So that caused a lot of companies to shut down in America, go to Mexico, and again, it also affected wages. So a lot of Americans were out of jobs. And what President Trump was saying is that we love international trade and we love international trade agreements, but it can't be to the disadvantage of Americans. And I agree with him. To be honest, I actually agree with him. You cannot form or sign multilateral trade agreements that put your country at a disadvantage. It doesn't make sense. And this is partly why he won that election. Of course, Russia kind of helped him, but it made a lot of sense. He was like, this is bullshit. You're putting Americans out of jobs. You have put so many Americans out of jobs. You're shipping, the jobs are being shipped to other countries. Why do you think President Trump mentioned China? How does China fit into the mix?
Well,
sir, because go ahead, John.
Yeah, go ahead.
So where I think China might have fit into the mix is because like most of the things come from there, I guess.
Most of what things?
Like almost everything. Like for example, like I say, you know, like for example, that's you know, like I don't even know if it's right. Trying to make a whole heap of something.
Okay. Like
yes,
what? Like what?
Like
all right,
for example.
Yeah, let's hear from the other person. Go ahead.
All right, yeah.
Sir, I kind of view it. Maybe a lot of the labor outsourced from China. Going to China instead of staying within America.
Yes.
A lot of the countries around.
But Trump is guilty of that too. Trump makes ties and his ties are built in China. It actually says made in China. Trump is a real hypocrite, but anyway, yeah, it actually says made in China. That's one. Anything else? Why China is mentioned by former President Donald Trump?
I think I heard, and I'm not sure of what he was saying about he is going to reduce American business owners to pay tax of 15%, reduced from 30%. It was something in the gap right there. So he was saying where China is concerned. Honestly, we never get clear clarity on that part.
So, and this is going to come in a later lecture when it comes on to foreign exchange. So what China does on the international market is that it depreciates its dollar. So when it depreciates its dollar, its goods are cheaper. So if America is selling bananas and China is selling bananas and China depreciates its dollar, then China's bananas what? Becomes cheaper, and then it means that China will increase their what? international trade, their trade index. So America also has a problem with that. And according to Trump, and some people actually agree with him, he's saying that American companies are put at a disadvantage because they're paying too much taxes in their countries when you should lower the taxes and allow them to be able to compete with China. Why put so much burden on American companies when we don't have fair players in international trade? And this is why, again, no, he would say the WTO is bullshit. It's why is it there if China is able to do whatever it wants? So you see how, yes.
China smart than them because China now go by the WTO. They are able to bring for them dollar way down to sell at a cheaper level than America. So them have a better advantage over America.
But
so
the thing
Trump
is that
really tell, so Trump can't really tell well Chinaman name, you can't tell the Chinaman say increase your thing or have what I call competitiveness, none at all. I can't compete with China.
But the thing is, and this is again, I would want to think that Trump would say, then what's the purpose of the World Trade Organization? Because their rules are supposed to be enforceable. And again, I think that's partly why so many Americans voted for Donald Trump the first time, because he might be racist, he might talk a little bit off the cuff, but him actually tell people what they want to hear in terms of he's saying international trade is not benefiting America the way it should. And everybody should have a Trump, in their country, except the racism part. But everybody should have a leader that is very frank, very, very frank. And what he was saying is that America was playing too nice in international trade. And because it was being so nice and wanted to be perceived as a very loving and caring country and a welfare state, other countries took advantage of that. And he was like, I am coming in now to kind of rebalance and to shift everything, because what these guys are doing, they're taking advantage of America. So love him or hate him, that was his perception, and to some extent, some people agree with his whole thing. So free trade is usually when there's free trade, and as I said before, I'm just kind of speaking in general. Usually there's no tariffs between countries. You hear Donald Trump mention tariffs because in his mind, and he actually put tariffs on goods that were coming from Canada. In his mind is that without the tariffs, America is losing. But usually when there's a free trade area, there's not supposed to be any tariffs. So goods and services are supposed to be they are supposed to move across international borders without restrictions. Or they're supposed to be, if there's going to be any tariff, it is agreed upon by all member states. All right. So again, no, he's like this trade business. He's saying, hold on, something is wrong. The notion of even a single market, this is what CARICOM is about. It's Caribbean, what it means again? What's that thing? CSME, Caribbean Single Market and Economy. I actually wrote an article about that in the Gleaner that was published some years ago. And again, they're saying, how can you have a single market when you don't even have a regional bank, or you don't have the money itself, the currency itself? There are different currencies. Some currency value more than others. And partly to why the single market concept was criticized is that most of the Caribbean countries have similar resources. And like Trinidad that has oil, it doesn't see itself, it doesn't want to be lumped into this Caribbean single market economy notion, because they can sell their oil and it benefits their individual country. So what happens sometimes, external countries would just sign a bilateral agreement or even a multilateral agreement with Trinidad and say, to hell with CARICOM or CARICOM single market and economy. So there are so many moving parts in international trade. And when I was doing my first degree, and even when I was doing my master's, the concept of dollar diplomacy kept coming up. At the end of the day, international trade is about bread and butter issues. That's really what international trade is about, bread and butter issues. At the end of the day, international trade is about who's in power in a particular country. So whoever is government, the government of the day sometimes will determine what type, how they actually participate in international trade. So you see the difference between a Donald Trump versus a Joe Biden versus a Bruce versus a Andrew Holness. You know, you see different leaders around the world responding in different ways. Right now, the war in the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, there are still some countries that are doing business with Russia. And then what Russia is doing now, because many of the countries depend on Russian oil, Russia say, okay, you don't want it, you can put in your tariffs, I'll sell it to China, I'll sell it to other countries. And also wheat, because wheat is needed to make, wheat is used in so many different products. This is why the food prices are also going up. Russia say, okay, you can put on your tariffs, I'll just do business with another country. So you find that, as I said before, international trade is very, very chaotic, is very, very bread and butter led, and sometimes can be very contradictory. Sometimes countries form alliances with other countries. They say, boy, sometimes you have to sleep with the devil. All right, so these are some of the things. When I gave you this first in-class assignment, really is to get you thinking in a very provocative way about international trade and understanding theories that can help you to kind of navigate the terrain, understanding why regional blocks sometimes are formed, the pros and cons of those particular regional blocks. Sometimes you're looking at the different trade theories and how they give you a history into understanding international trade and where it is coming from. Even I think there was a question about the transatlantic slave trade. Was there a question about the transatlantic slave trade? I am listening. They're silent.
Yes, sir.
And I think it asked, let me ask you this question. Do you think the transatlantic slave trade was based on race or was it based on economics?
Sir, I can't answer that. I never do that one.
Sir, I think it's economics.
Tell us why you say that.
Sir, because I believe at the time it was going on, those in European countries looked at Africa and, well, I'm going to say Africa, looked at Africa and looked at them and thought they were an underdeveloped country in comparison to them. And the things, and then they brought the new sparkly things that they had and showed it to that country and that economy. And, you know, they thought that, all right, if you come over here and work for over here, you can get these things. So because they were so quote unquote underdeveloped in comparison to the European countries, it was a lot easier for them to capture them, to fool them and capture them and make them slaves.
Okay. Anybody else? That's a thought. All right. I think I've given you something to think about. All right. I think I've given you something to think about, whether slavery was based on race or economics or both. You know, it's something that historians have actually been talking about whether, you know, how should we think about slavery? How should we think about the transatlantic slave trade? I remember when my lecturer said it to me years ago, I was like, I've never thought about it that way. Even the discussion about the death penalty in Jamaica based on the crime that was committed, and I hear a lot of people saying, oh, you know, the DPP says she wants to execute, she wants the death penalty and I said to somebody, it will not happen. And you know, a good friend of mine, he and I went at it today, and we kind of, I think I've lost a good friend, but I tell you, social media sometimes can cause things to go awry, because I wrote an article about it some years ago when I was, let me see if I can find and show you, some years ago, and I pointed out specifically to him that there was, because Jamaica is party or member of several international human rights bodies and treaties, they can't just get up and execute somebody like that. What do you guys think? Is it that you're for the death penalty and you're saying that, you know, he should be executed? And what are your thoughts?
Sir, me first, I strongly believe this man should have faced a death penalty. Worse, me have 2 daughters. And me no want to imagine that for my dad. Not even, me no want to imagine that for no female whatsoever. That was, that too grimy, man. That come like you watch Wrong Turn or something. A crime like that should not go unpunished in a no little pitiful way.
But what if he has mental issues though?
If he have mental issues, boy, sir.
Sir, personally, I believe that mental illness in this situation, it cannot be used as an excuse. Because I firmly believe in our society and throughout the years, there have been many people who have lived and gone through life with mental issues and have came out on top of those who are completely sane. Not saying it's not a struggle, because it's most definitely a struggle, but that makes them stronger. At the end of the day, yes, you are mentally ill, and whichever mental illness could have make him do that. I don't know which one could have really actually make him do that, but even if he did have a mental illness, there must have been a part of his brain, a part of his head that said to him, that whispered to him that what he was doing was wrong. Then that is true.
No, not when you have mental illness. That's like saying a drunken man should be able even though he's drunk, a part of him should still be sane. No.
But sir, aren't a part of you still saying, sir?
I'm not. Hold on. I am not defending him. I'm just saying that if I'm a defense lawyer, if I'm a defense lawyer, all I'll say is that he's insane, and then I'll get a specialist, an expert to say that he's insane. And if they,
but then, sir, hold on.
If he's yes, of course. That's why you get an expert. Yes, and you're going to get an expert to classify the illness and show the level of whatever, and show even brain, show diagrams of or images of his brain, and show which part of his brain was shut down or whatever. Remember, part of the issue in Jamaica is that we don't properly treat and diagnose. We don't properly diagnose and treat mental illness. It could be that and I'm not saying that he has a mental illness. It could be that he's just a son of a gun. He's just wicked and evil. So I'm not defending him. The thing relating to the death penalty, however, though, there were 3 cases, and I actually posted the article that has become case law in Jamaica, where if you convict somebody of the most egregious murder and you say that you put them to they are supposed to be put to death. First of all, they have to go through all the appeal process. This is why in the United States, all persons who are on the death row, it's like they're on death row for 10, 15, 20 years. In the case that I put in my article is that what the Privy Council said is that after 5 years, you cannot kill the person because it becomes cruel and inhumane. So even if, let's just say that he goes to court and is convicted, they can't kill him the next day. They have to wait until all the appeal processes have gone through before. I'm sure it's going to take more than 5 years. I am certain it's going to take more than 5 years. All right. So case law, and it has actually become case law. There were 3 cases in Jamaica that has led to it becoming case law. I could be wrong because I'm not a lawyer, but I learned it at school, learned it when I was a student. And I don't know that I don't know that the precedent is called case law. The precedent has been changed. Somebody said get beat in jail. I think he needs more than beaten, but I don't think somebody like him is probably properly screwed upstairs. I think some screws upstairs are missing or have been screwed out a little or something. I can't imagine a normal human being getting up and killing a mother, then turning around, because in my mind, I'm thinking that he killed the mother first, and then the children are there crying and, probably whatever, and he just gets angry and kill everybody.
Sir, honestly, sir, I think it's probably not, in Jamaica specifically, it's a cultural thing as well. We have this sick, inhumane culture that most men believe that they rule women. We are not, in their eyes, I don't believe in their eyes, we are human beings. We are just there for sex and reproduction, and that is it.
Well,
And
I wouldn't say that
something
it's
in their head
unique to
that-
Jamaica. I wouldn't say it's unique to Jamaicans. You find that
Yeah,
men
so it's probably
across
it's a
the
lot
world.
of this, but I've only been in Jamaica. I've never been anywhere else. I just speaking on Jamaica. I don't want to call another country name,
Okay.
But it's something that you see, especially as a female, from the day you're born. It is shown on the news, in your family, even in the world. So when you're born, if you look in your father's eye, your father don't look at you the same way as he looks at his son. He see the son as stronger, as better, and you are just,
Well, I'll say too that in Jamaica we tend to celebrate violence in many sorts. So if two men are arguing and one man say, all right, done the argument, whatever, oh, am I idiot and I'm a fool, and nobody wants to settle the score in a very peaceful and humane way. People want to fight and show who's stronger and bigger and better and
but
stuff
who
like
sets that bar though? Who sets
No,
that bar?
we are the
Isn't it
ones
the
who
men
do
that
it.
set that bar?
No, I wouldn't say the men necessarily, because remember, I wouldn't outright blame all men, because most men in Jamaica are raised by women, not men.
Most definitely not.
But statistically though, most men who are raised in Jamaica, they're raised by women, not men, because most boys grow up in single parents homes. So it could be that the mothers are not doing a very good job. It could be that the mothers are actually not there, and those young boys are raised by other bad men. But anyhow, we are 2 minutes beyond the time, and it's actually after 10 in my country. So have a good night, everybody, and I'll see you on Friday. And I'm going to show you.
Remember the question, sir.
You will get the question. Don't worry yourself, because we have another week. And you're going to I'm going to show you how to upload my assignments. There are some persons who are not coming to the Friday class, so remember Friday you have to upload the assignment. So if you're not here, that's 0. Have a good night, everybody.
All right, sir. Same to you.